Surrender is a word you hear a lot during your healing journey, and it used to frustrate the fuck out of me. Those of you who've read my book, Let That Shit Go, know that I was never very good at letting go of anything. I had this really tight grasp on life, even when it was hurting me to hold on. And for whatever reason, I'd always convince myself that the suffering I'd experience from refusing to let go was incredibly less than the suffering I'd experience if I actually did. I just couldn't deal with the uncertainty of it all. So much of my life was uncertain. My own personal history is uncertain. My upbringing was uncertain. My experiences, even my own identity, was uncertain to me. Everything felt like this elusive mystery, and all I ever wanted was something to be sure of, because I wasn't sure of anything, including myself. You can imagine the weight that can create on your mental, on your heart, most of all your spirit. I always felt like I had to be 2 steps ahead of everything to be safe. If I didn't have control, that meant someone else did, and I didn't trust whoever that was. I couldn't rely on anyone else. That's what I learned. It was all on me. Or so I thought. When it came time to prioritize this spiritual journey of mine, to be completely honest, it kind of took center stage on its own and refused to allow me to focus on anything else. And all I kept getting was surrender, surrender, surrender. What the fuck do you mean surrender? I always equated surrender and letting go with giving up. And one thing about me is I'm not a quitter. So I'd hold on to the very bitter end. But what I didn't realize until much later was that letting go wasn't giving up. It was releasing that tight grip to create more room for the universe to do what needs to be done. And within that also meant recognizing that I'm not doing life alone, and that I can trust whoever or whatever is guiding me and co-creating this experience with me. It also meant that I needed to learn how to trust myself again. I recently finished reading this book called Tantra Demystified, which you will probably hear me talk about more than once. It's by Vikas Malkani. And I don't know the last time I read a book that felt so chosen for me to read. There was a lot of validation I received from reading this book when it came to understanding that my innate feelings and view of partnership, of sex, of spirituality, when it comes to those aspects of life, weren't just coming out of nowhere. I realized after reading this book that I was remembering a very ancient practice that was near and dear to me. And there's so much resolution that can be created from that. So I wanted to read you the passage on surrender and how to practice surrender from the book, because I found it really well put in a way that's easy to digest and put into practice. Surrender is an essential aspect of the learning process in Tantra. There is, however, a lot of confusion about what surrender means. People are suspicious of this term, which they equate with loss of free will and personal power. In fact, they are confusing surrender with submission, which is a passive attitude that implies giving up responsibility for one's behavior. wanting someone else to do things for you. The word surrender has significant roots, in which render has the meaning to melt, and sur means super or highest. In other words, the true meaning of surrender is to melt into that which is higher than yourself. True surrender is a conscious choice made from free will. It means opening your heart and trusting the person you are with, whether it is your beloved or your partner. Here are 4 ways to practice surrender. Number 1, drop being in control. People love to be in control. It makes them feel safe and secure. Very few are attracted to what may be perceived as its opposite, being out of control. Being out of control can be scary, frustrating, even terrifying. And so people expend much time and energy trying to keep themselves, each other, and their environment under control. They develop many strategies, from the subtle to the blatant, to help feel they are in command. For example, keeping belongings and furnishings in precise order, maintaining strict schedules for waking, sleeping, and eating, making love in the one right place at the one right time in the one right position, or insisting on trying to win an argument whether their point is valid or not. Control can also be a subtle dance of manipulation, appearing in the guise of helpless need, or alternatively as solicitous concern for others, making certain everything runs smoothly and all are happy, taking responsibility for everyone's well-being so that ultimately everything is under control. I see the opposite of control not as out of control, but rather as surrender or letting go. Being in control is simply an illusion. When it comes right down to it, no one has absolute control over anything. You do, however, have a choice. You can choose to try and make things happen precisely as you want them to, and get frustrated when they do not turn out that way. Or you can let go, surrendering to the ebb and flow of life. Number 2, surrender. Surrender is essential for creating love and for spiritual union. Perhaps you are afraid of surrender because you equate surrender with submission, but the two are very different. Submission exists in the context of power in relationships. It implies domination. Someone submits when they are overpowered or overwhelmed, but surrender is not submission, nor is it passivity, losing, or being inferior. Surrender is an active process of conscious, courageous choice, because although you are not submitting, you do have to give something up. Your ego knows and fears this. Your ego likes things as they are. If some change is required, it wants to take credit, to feel the pride of accomplishment and success. But in the spiritual quest, you give up this self-importance. You give up the claim, I did it on my own, my way. The fear of surrendering can be so strong that you may feel as if you will be diminished, even annihilated. You will disappear. The actuality is very different. Instead of diminishing you, surrender makes you bigger, expanding and connecting you to something so much greater than your ego could ever have imagined. If surrender is not giving up, giving in, or being dominated, what is it? It is trusting that there is a larger life process that you are part of and can be in alignment with. Showing vulnerability, admitting even that you do not know what to do when you feel fear and insecurity. Making choices and taking risks, acting in spite of your fear and insecurity. Letting go of attachment to the results of your choices. Suspending judgment when things do not go the way you want them to. Being open to surprises, allowing that there may be more possibilities than you thought or could have imagined, and that these may be better, not worse, than what you wanted. As you begin to explore the meaning of surrender in terms of actual behavior, you will come to a critical distinction. On the one hand, there are those things in your life that you make happen, that you take from life, or that you achieve with willpower as the result of acquired talent. There are others that come to you as gifts from out of the mystery, the universe, or from God, wonderful surprises beyond anything you could have imagined, better than you could have planned or even hoped for. Number 3, let go of results. Surrendering means you maintain your intention and you dive in wholeheartedly, but you let go of any expectation that things will turn out the way you planned or expected. When you let go of the attachment to end results, you disconnect from the typical emotional overreaction that occurs when things do not turn out as expected. You do not have to worry about the precise outcome beforehand. You do not have to be angry or depressed if it does not turn out your way. You cannot fake this detachment, but you can be aware of your emotions. For example, worry, fear, and anger. When you feel negative emotions rising, you can use emotional release techniques to help let them go. It is easier to detach from expectations when you do not suppress or deny your emotions, but instead let them out in constructive ways, like letting off the steam in a boiler. When you let go of attachment to a particular outcome, you allow yourself to be open to the surprise of something other than what you wanted. You acknowledge that what is coming could be better than you had imagined, rather than uselessly indulging yourself in the fear that it will be worse. Certain positive effects appear in your life quickly when you let go of all concern for a particular outcome. For example, your stress level from worry drops off sharply. You can make better decisions, and you act more efficiently when you can stay emotionally calm, even when things do not seem to be going your way. When you surrender and let go of any expectations about what the result of your actions will be, you will come to understand that even when things seem to go badly, in the longer perspective, these seeming setbacks lead to larger outcomes that are extraordinary and filled with unanticipated delight. Instead of losing some imaginary freedom, this way of living offers you true freedom. You can do anything you want, but of course, as an aware human being, you will not do just anything at all. On the contrary, you will consistently act in ways that are seemingly right as you move to higher levels of self-actualization. You will know the meaning of abundance and share it freely with others. Your optimism and comfort in yourself will radiate. People will feel good to be around you. You cannot fake surrender. You cannot pretend to give up expectation. You must simply jump into the abyss in faith and trust. And lastly, number 4, let go in relationship. What causes the relationship to sink is the accumulated weight of unresolved stuff. In relationships, letting go means to reveal the emotional truth of what is going on inside you. Vulnerable emotions are usually the fear and insecurity that lie below anger. In this, you are taking a risk. The other person could reject, judge, or take advantage of you. It means revealing your limitations and weaknesses, which may be as simple as admitting you don't know how to do something or you don't have the solution to a problem. Revealing emotional vulnerabilities in a loving relationship will deliver immediate benefits in your life. You give your partner permission to take off the mask of infallibility and perfection. Your lover will be much more inclined to show you affection if you are vulnerable. Unbending strength is unapproachable, while being vulnerable is an invitation to intimacy. I am not talking about whining and complaining or false modesty, but being true about your limitations and your capabilities. Revealing your vulnerabilities is not a strategy to seduce someone, but an honest, open attempt at real intimacy. I hope you found as much wisdom and direction and validation as I did hearing that. As much as we throw these terms around in this journey, in this practice, it's rare that we actually get to the root of what we're saying, what we are trying to implement into our lives, and how that affects who we show up as. We often talk about vulnerability and trust. And while there's no arguing that practicing these things is incredibly scary, there's a point, there's a reason why these things keep coming up. And there's a reason why during this time it is so loud when it comes to how important these things are. While we may have varying views on partnership, something that I'm sure I'll touch on perhaps in the next video, I think the relationship we cultivate within ourselves affects the way we build relationship with others. And when we're able to do that in a healthy, conscious, and courageous way, that's when we begin to build a better society and a better world to live in. So for everyone who keeps talking about wanting to change the world or how the world needs to change, know that you have a part to play in that change. And it starts with really taking an honest look at yourself. Start there.